Hey, Truth Seeker. Monday, October 2nd, 2023. Gonna go over all the latest headlines. But first, shout out to Kayla Decode Talker. She just sent me this. Look at this ad, you guys. This is a Snickers ad. It says, hoarding 56 toilet paper rolls for your costume. Have a Snickers. And, I mean, seriously, 56? For people who forget, in Gematria, toilet paper equals 56, like coronavirus, like COVID vaccine, like Anthony Fauci, like the gazillion other 56 rituals that were involved with coronavirus. Remember, the first consequence of coronavirus was the toilet paper being sold out. A story that made literally no sense. But again, it became part of a very long list of 56. Now, all these years later, Snickers is running this ad. I mean, it's just like it's the biggest slap in the face. Hoarding 56 toilet paper rolls for your costume. Ooh, I still remember we were out in front of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, March of 2020, right after they declared the pandemic, and some Indian gentlemen who work for the big tech companies, they came out of the local Kroger-owned grocery store with just huge sacks full of toilet paper. And we were trying to teach them the joke of why toilet paper was the first casualty of coronavirus, and they didn't want to hear about it. But anyway, I guess this commercial speaks to them, so go figure. And speaking of 56, we're going to talk about Gavin Newsom. Again, his name equals 56 in Gematria, like Anthony Fauci. They're both Jesuit educated, and of course, the formal title of the Jesuits is Society of Jesus, which equals 56, like Washington, D.C., their stronghold. Also, like their little agenda called Black Lives Matter, which also equals 56. And the Jesuits in high places, their latest criteria for selecting politicians has been they have to be a black woman. It was true for the vice president. It was true for the latest Supreme Court pick. And it was also true for the replacement of Dianne Feinstein. And Gavin Newsom just announced last night that it'll be Laphonza Butler from the president of Emily's List to replace Dianne Feinstein in the Senate for California. And I want you to see how perfect this ritual is. But remember, it was Gavin Newsom who, when he locked down California, said 56% of California will get coronavirus in 8 weeks, which means he said 56% in 56 days. Again, going with his name Gematria, that's also 56. But Laphonza Butler, look how perfect this ritual is, you guys. Her birthday is May 11th. Well, this is according to Wikipedia today. Last night, when the news was first made, I looked up to see if I could find her birthday online, and last night Wikipedia didn't have a birthday for her. But this morning when I woke up, it was there. So, assuming they found the correct birthday for Laphonza, May 11th, from that day to him selecting her, which was last night, October 1st, it was her 144th day of her age. And of course, those pesky Jesuits, they sure love that 144 number. In Gematria, Jesuit orders 144. It's also 72 when you run it the small way, like Laphonza Butler. Now, the other thing you could point out, instead of saying it was her 144th day of her age, you could say that it was 143 days after her birthday, and she's the president of Emily's List. And notice how Emily's List equals 143. And when you run it the small way, Emily's List is 44, which is her current age. She's 44 years old, Laphonza Butler. And for the record, the surname Jackson has Gematria 44. Of course, we know African Americans got the 44 connection, thus Obama, number 44, 44 years after the Civil Rights Act. But notice she went to Jackson State University as well. You might recall the Ketanji Brown Jackson nomination, and then her installment on the bench by the numbers. And the next thing you knew, Jackson, Mississippi was flooding on Michael Jackson's birthday. And the next thing you knew, Deion Sanders was leaving Jackson State. So I do also find it interesting that she follows the latest qualification for high office, and the qualification is being a black woman. But also that she went to Jackson State University. And again, a common definition for racism is doing things based on race solely, making your decisions solely based on race. That is a definition of racism. So technically, these are racist installments, if you will. I know they're meant to counter racism and years of discrimination against people who are defined as black Americans, but it is also interesting that the name Laphonza Butler has the same gematria as racism. So the point being, again, the Jesuits who work by the code every day, who run the nation, its government, its news, and who work by the same numerical patterns over and over, here we are again. What are the odds? What are the odds? And of course, Dianne Feinstein just died by the numbers. She had to be dead for this to happen. And she was on her deathbed for some time, but as we covered, she died in a very Jewish ritual as a Jewish senator, just like how Ruth Bader Ginsburg was killed in a very Jewish ritual on Rosh Hashanah as the lone Jewish Supreme Court member at the time. Now pretty much everyone on the bench is Catholic. And speaking of Catholics, the big politicians there in California, you got Nancy Pelosi Catholic, you got Dianne Feinstein Jewish, you used to have Barbara Boxer who was also Jewish. Again, the Jesuits are Catholic and Jewish. If you don't know about the Jesuits, you got to look up their history. They're the reason this nation was formed because people are trying to run away from them in Europe. That's why a lot of the founders were real worried about what would happen when the Jesuits came out of suppression, and not long after, the nation was totally hijacked and the capital moved to D.C., where the Jesuits set up camp when they came over from Europe. Anyhow, when Dianne Feinstein died on September 28th, it was on Nancy Pelosi's 187th day of her age. Of course, that's the homicide code out in California. It's also a huge number with the nation's capital in D.C. and deaths. And, when I covered Dianne Feinstein's death, I actually overlooked that day the connection with Nancy Pelosi, but I did bring up how Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in a very Jesuit ritual 187 days after her own birthday on Rosh Hashanah. And things that equal 187 gematria: Holy Roman Empire, George Washington, Washington, D.C., Society of Jesus, all 187. The alias for Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death, that's another 187. And it is a number that's quite fateful. We see it a lot. So you just got to say, what are the odds? What are the odds that Dianne Feinstein would die on the 187th day of Nancy Pelosi's age? And not to mention Nancy's 83 years old right now, and we all know that the word murder equals 83, and the song Murder by Numbers came out in 83. So it had to be that way to get Laphonza in just in time. Now, the other campaign we always talk about around here is, what is 47? Why are there so many rituals in the nation's capital with 47? And notice when the government saved the government from a shutdown, they funded it for 47 more days. 47 more days. And then Joe Biden put his John Hancock on there. And again, Joe Biden was once the 47th vice president who took office with 47-year-old Obama. And then he had Donald Trump saying Trump had done more in 47 months than Biden had done in 47 years, which is how long Biden was in D.C. before he became the president. And if you are new here, again, you got to know that 47 list in D.C. Again, there's the Trump quote from back in 2020. He's done more in 47 months than Biden's done in 47 years. Again, gematria, alphabetic order forwards and backwards. President, White House, government authority, Republican, Whig, Democrat, D.C., and Trump, all 47. Big number in the nation's capital. So what are the odds that they chose to fund it for 47 more days? And the day it's funded through is November 17th. Well, that's the day we always call the 187 day. And that's because 1117 is a lot like the number 1117, which is the 187th prime number, and the prime factors of 187 are 11 and 17. Again, Washington, D.C. equals 187. Here, I want to remind you guys about something else. Let me pull up the calculator real quick. Again, if you're new here, the base ciphers are the alphabetic order forwards and backwards with numerology. Washington, D.C. has the gematria of 56. We talked about that number. Also 187. 61 is the number that represents God and sacred geometry, where gematria means geometry and language. 137 is the 33rd prime. Federal order, secrecy, masonry, all words with gematria 33. D.C., known as the Masonic City, with the House of the Temple that has 33 columns on the outside that are each 33 feet tall. But again, there are ciphers outside of the base ciphers. And again, Chaldean and Septenary are a paired cipher. You want to look at them together. But in both ciphers, Washington, D.C. is also 47. So 47 more days of funding through 11/17, the day connected to 187. And again, the point is it's a ritual. It's a ritual. All this drama is high ritual. Ritual after ritual that becomes news story after the news story that keeps people choosing this party or that party and keeps them tracked in the matrix of lies and deception. Again, this whole mechanism that's ruling over us, it needs to be bulldozed. You know? It's a joke. We're made to obey this corrupt authority. We're made to pay taxes to it. They put us in 13 years of slave school, pledging to 13 stripes about a nation founded by 13 colonies that was established right after the Illuminati was founded with 13 families. And again, we learned about how in the old days, people wanted to get away from overtaxation and they didn't want to pay taxes on their income. Now we're all paying taxes on our income. We're all paying federally. And depending on what state you live in, you might also be paying state income taxes. If you're not paying state income taxes, you're paying property taxes or sales taxes or gasoline taxes or cell phone taxes or cable taxes or, just more and more taxes by the day. And to what? So what? Your money can be sent over to Ukraine? It's the latest scam. So your money can be, sent to Anthony Fauci's latest research program. Anthony Fauci using your taxpayer money to create genetically modified insects that he puts in cages with animals, including dogs, to see what happens. It's the kind of stuff we're paying for. I mean, the people we learned about in the history books, they revolted for a lot less. Where's all the people who wanted to lock up Mike Vick? I haven't seen any of those people crying about Anthony Fauci. I've seen him out obeying his slave muzzle orders after, and funny because before he said the slave muzzle wasn't going to do anything. Then all of a sudden you need one slave muzzle, and then two, and then maybe three, and then, maybe it's none again, and now maybe it's one again. 47 slave muzzles. It's the new mandate. 47 slave muzzles. Have to be as fancy as Nancy Pelosi's. Has to match. The outermost of the 47 slave muzzles has to match your outfit each day. 47 booster shots per year. It'll eventually get there if people don't revolt. That's why it gets worse and worse each year. Eventually it'll be that bad. Hey, not to be outdone, you might have heard that the day of the vote, where our government saved us from the government shutdown, they had to shame the black man. Jamal Bowman was back in his middle school maturity hour. 47-year-old Jamal Bowman, born on April Fool's Day, supposedly pulled the fire alarm. And go figure that fire alarm equals 47. So they had to have the 47-year-old pull the fire alarm before they could fund the government for 47 more days. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice? Poor guy. Okay, what else happened? They got to have the leader of the House be McCarthy in the time of Russia being the big bad guy again, right? McCarthyism, another joke over the heads of most Americans. They're only watching football games. But, the vote for the government to save us all happened 247 days after McCarthy's birthday while the country's 247 years old. I'm sure that was an accident. Came on the 153rd day of the Illuminati's age, which is also 247 years old right now. And the Illuminati equals 153, just like Jesuit order, just like how the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati. And also came 88 days after the nation's birthday. And the Republican Party, large and in charge, with the 88 Gematria. So they couldn't have lined it up any better. And then again, just down the road, Nancy Pelosi's hometown, the Catholic Church of Baltimore, filing Chapter 11 because they can't pay the bills for all the families of the abused children. I don't know how people keep showing up in these churches on the weekend. I mean, how much mind control are these people under? As long as I just keep believing and not paying attention to how many priests are raping children, I'll get my eternal place in the afterlife because he's just going to come back any day now. But yeah, again, the news story broke about all the raped children in Baltimore on April 5th, again, the 95th day of the year, and then the news about filing for Chapter 11 came on October 1st, 179 days later. So the news, the story that this was coming, again, April 5th, the 95th day of the year, going with Baltimore, 95 the big way. The small way, with numerology, Baltimore's 41, and that's why 179 days later, the 41st prime. Again, why are all these sodomy stories by the numbers? You know, why is the fourth book of the Bible numbers? The worst one of these to date has been the George Floyd thing. Remember, in the aftermath of George Floyd, in fact, it was the day after the news broke about George Floyd with the officer in his neck in the very Catholic Twin Cities. The news broke the next day that the Catholic Church of Minnesota was paying $22.5 million to families of abused children, sexually abused children, and George Floyd had reportedly been killed on the 225th day of his age, and then again $22.5 million for the lawsuit. And then later, Derek Chauvin got 22.5 years in prison. And again, in Gematria, the Trinitarian formula is where the 225 fits in. You know, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. It also goes with the Great Tribulation, which is also related here. But after that, if it wasn't bad enough, then the news story came out about George Floyd's second grade teacher who remembered what a sweet little boy he was. And do you remember the teacher's name? Waynel like anal, Sexton. Waynel Sexton, who remembered what a sweet boy he was. He was just the sweetest boy. I'm Waynel Sexton. Again, all this stuff's a mockery. And don't forget how many different ways they put the Jesuit code on the George Floyd ritual to divide the nation. The divide and conquer gang that is the Jesuit order. And they said there were 156 priests in Baltimore responsible for this sexual abuse that's bankrupted the church. Remember, Vatican Hill equals 911. That's the 156th prime number. So it's probably part of the reason they're going with the number that they've chosen. And it's a reminder the upcoming Super Bowl is on the 95th birthday of the Vatican. February 11th, 112, Catholicism 112, like mathematics, like every story rolling out by the code. And again, I mean, you got to think about why the Catholic Church allows these stories to get the headlines that it does. They're controlling the whole show. To me, I think it's flaunting. I think they're flaunting with every last one of these stories. You're still going to keep coming to our churches. You're still going to keep believing our bullshit. You're not going to do anything about it. We're going to keep raping you in the ass. We're going to let you know that we're raping you in the ass, and we're going to keep doing it. And you're not going to do shit about it. You're going to go out and buy more toilet paper and jabs and wear your slave muzzles and vote in our rigged systems. You know? You're going to keep obeying Slick Willie, Nancy, the rest of the crew. You're going to fight over our two puppets, Donald and Joe, and whatever other one will throw up on the stage. That's my interpretation of the situation. So, also in the news today, Nobel Prize in Medicine won by two scientists for groundbreaking findings on mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. And again, you guys, this is happening today on 10/2, like 102. Who could ever remember that... Or who could ever forget that Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline merged 102 weeks before the pandemic? Again, the two most sued companies in the world for wrongful death and injury, and the two companies in the world who, after their merger, made the most money off the pandemic. Exactly 102 months. On the nose. 102, the reflection of 201. Event 201, the simulation for the pandemic right before it all went down. Art of War, that Jesuit text has that Gematria 102. The Jesuit Order 201. Remember the simulation for 9/11? If you don't know about it, June 1st, 2001, Amalgam Virgo. You can look it up. Cover page is Osama bin Laden's face. The exact simulation of Al-Qaeda attacking the U.S. 102 days before 9/11, where 2 towers became 0 before they became 1, where Al-Qaeda equals 102 like Art of War, like World War. They said COVID was the worst thing since the World Wars. They said it was the worst pandemic in 102 years since Spanish flu, which came out of World War I. So anyway, here we are on 10/2. And who gets the awards? Well, first of all, 68-year-old Caitlin Carrico does. Of course, coronavirus coined in 1968. And this award comes 258 days after her birthday. You might recall 201. Another side to that number is 258. William Henry Gates equals 201 and 258. Of course, co-sponsor of Event 201, Mr. Jab, up there in the land of the Big Needle in Seattle. Remember, he lost his dad in the 258 ritual the year of the pandemic. His vaccine alliance was also set up in a big 258 ritual once upon a time. The phrase number of the beast also equals 258, and it goes with COVID, the pandemic being declared 666 days. After the first simulation, before Event 201, there was Clade X. They were the 2 paired simulations for the pandemic put on by the same people. But yes, 258 days after her birthday. And the other person who got the award was Drew Weissman, who's probably friends with the Sackler family. I'm sure they go to the same Saturday school together. But this comes on his 26th day of his age. And COVID equals 26, like virus, like China. Another big number that we've talked about a gazillion times. So it's funny the way it all lines up. And his name's almost a perfect overlap in every cipher with Jesuit Order, which should remind you of all the Jesuit rituals with Moderna and Pfizer and the rest of them, Johnson & Johnson. Because, again, that is who is running the show. I know we got a lot of people in this community who've acted like they were friends of the community for many a years, but then when things finally got to a pinnacle, a lot of them jumped ship, and then all of a sudden there were no Jesuits, and everything was just unfolding organically, and everything was a coincidence. Again, you got to watch out for the plants hanging around here. And the reason these plants are around is because we're exposing very serious things that people need to know about. Got all these snakes in the grass. Look out. But yeah, Drew Weissman. I suppose it's just another coincidence. Okay. Something I overlooked that happened last week, and again, in the land of the free, home of the brave, I mean, why are these things not already done? And for me, this one's personal because... Anyway, let me talk about what it is, and then I'll remind you why it's personal for me. But U.S. Senate Committee votes to advance marijuana banking bill. And what day did they decide to do this? Well, on September 27th, the day the Jesuits were recognized by Roman history. And again, why has it been that, states have been legalizing marijuana for medicinal purposes and more recently recreational purposes for quite some time now? It's been more than 10 years. I'm trying to remember when, the medicinal spots started to pop up all over Washington State and other places. I mean, it's probably close to 15 years now. But again, for all this time, you've had to pay cash. You can't use a card of any kind because everything card related is federal. And of course, marijuana is criminal on the federal level. But what this is set up is, these places are full of cash. So people know that they're good places to rob because they're always going to be full of cash. And not only have these places been robbed by civilians, they've also been robbed many a times by the feds. After Washington State, for example, where I live, legalized marijuana and rec shops, you still had feds coming in and raiding and taking everything in the shop, all the money, all the supplies, everything. And so it's been like a Fed state war. But again, it's like land of the free, home of the brave. Like, if that's the case, why should any plant be illegal? Why shouldn't it be up to any individual's choice? You know, if heroin becomes legal overnight, it's not going to make me want to go out and use heroin. I know that that's highly addictive, and I've seen the way it destroys lives. And again, also all kinds of studies that show that when you make things illegal, it just makes it more interesting, especially to teenagers who have less experience in life and are more likely to make worse mistakes. I mean, HBO's been glorifying that with their show Euphoria. But that is a weird show too, HBO, because it has so much sex with teenagers, which, you know, and it's like, okay, so they're supposed to be under 18 and all these sex scenes with, I mean, isn't this like illegal in a way? But HBO say, well, all of our actors are above 18, even though they're portraying, 15 and 16-year-olds. But it's like, okay. Anyway, HBO, if you don't know, is a completely Jesuit-run network as well. And again, the reason this is problematic is because it screwed up my life. My life would have been a lot different because the other thing is if you make your income and you have a legitimate business in your state, you cannot deposit the money from that business. Otherwise, if the bank finds out, all of your funds will be seized and you will not get them back. So, I once had a legitimate delivery service for marijuana in Washington State, medicinal and recreational. And it was very successful. And I was living in a place that did not have any brick and mortar dispensary at the time because there was an ordinance in the town that we knew was eventually going to end, but there was still an ordinance in the town I lived in. And I wanted to take the funds that I had made for my business and open up a brick and mortar shop besides just having the delivery. And the way it worked out in my world is when my house got ransacked and everything got destroyed and stolen, including the safe token that was full of cash that you couldn't deposit anywhere. Ironically, the way it worked out was about a month later, the town I was in dropped the ordinance of no shops. And it was funny, the exact location that had been vacant forever that I thought would be ideal for a shop, another weed shop went in there, and I just thought, unbelievable the way this works out, man. Right after I get destroyed and everything's stolen, they drop the ordinance, and now my vision is now somebody else's store. Anyway, but the only reason that happened is because I couldn't deposit the money anywhere. I had to keep all the money. And in hindsight, I should have had, the safe super bolted and probably put under the floorboards. But yeah, I mean, the same story could be told for a million different people in this nation who've been in the business. And this stuff's a joke. It's like, okay, it's a legitimate business for the state, but we can't deposit the money anywhere because of the BS laws and the supposed land of the free, home of the brave. But again, the other thing I want to point out is how when they're finally going to, make things, I would say this is making things right. Notice it's a Jesuit ritual once again. And don't forget the original bankers are the Templars, and the Templar cross is in the middle of the Jesuit logo. So go figure it's on that day of all days. Okay. Yeah, in other news, we have another dead athlete. Russ Francis, who played for the Patriots as well as the San Francisco 49ers, and San Francisco is named after St. Francis of Assisi. He died in a plane crash on a Sunday of all days, and he's dead at age 70. And again, the thing about Francis being dead at 70 is that in Gematria, Francis is 70. And this happened in NFL Week 4, and of course 4 is the number associated with death. He died a span of 78 days from Pope Francis's birthday, and Russ Francis equals 78, like Sunday, like Jesuit. Russ Francis, the other way, equals 48, and he's dead 48 years after being drafted. And his team that drafted him, the Patriots, got absolutely wasted by the Cowboys, 38-3, the day of his death. And what do we know about 38 and death? Death, murder, killing, RIP, all 38. Murder by numbers. Movie poster codes the 38 right on the movie poster. So his plane might have come down, but Was it from engine failure or was it from something else? R.I.P. And then Chandler Jones is in the news. Shout out to the Green Arrow who tipped me off to this story. Chandler Jones, NFL player. He uploaded to social media, a thing talking about Illuminati and some other thoughts. And at the end of his stream, he brought up the name Aaron Hernandez, the football player who supposedly committed suicide in his jail cell the same day the New England Patriots were at the White House with Donald Trump to be congratulated for winning the Super Bowl, where they came back by 25 points on 2/5 over the Falcons, the team that equals 25, in the year that they moved the touchback 25 yards because it was the 97th season, the 25th prime. But Chandler Jones, again, at the end of his video, he's crying, starting to talk about it, but he's making the point that Aaron Hernandez did not commit suicide, and it had something to do with Josh McDaniels, who was the assistant coach of the Patriots at the time. And, I'm not sure that the Josh McDaniels is, he's probably not, I'm sure being in the league, he knows something more than I know, but what I'm saying is it's not just Josh McDaniels. It's bigger than that. But recall, these are the headlines from when Aaron Hernandez died. I still have the headlines saved. And what's funny is if you search Google now, and TMZ has gotten rid of all these stories. They're not up anymore. But these are from the day of the news. Again, I've been here documenting the news every day since 2013. Aaron Hernandez wrote Illuminati in blood on the wall of his cell the day of his death. So apparently he committed suicide, and while he was bleeding out, he took his blood and wrote Illuminati. That was the story per TMZ at the time. And remember, Illuminati equals 48, like Donald Trump. And don't forget, there's an Illuminati card for Donald Trump. There's an Illuminati card for 9/11. There's an Illuminati card for flat earthers. All things that are big and on the scene at this day and age. But anyhow, just wanted to remind people of that. And I have a lot of archive posts on Aaron Hernandez. There was a whole lot to his story. Aaron Hernandez is another name that in Gematria equals 144 and 72, like Jesuit order. And the day he died as well was April 19th. Of course, that's that really big Jesuit day. That's the day in history that Ignatius of Loyola became the first superior general of the Jesuits. Order of Illuminati equals 201, like the Jesuit order, like Ignatius of Loyola. And let's not forget about Tom Brady, who was there at the White House that day with his Patriots team. Tom Brady, born 201 years after the Illuminati and the United States. ESPN wrote the big article about him when he got his 201st career win over the Rams, the 201 team from St. Louis, where in football history, St. Louis, the Jesuit university, threw the first forward pass, beginning the position of the quarterback. Again, Brady got the 201st career win over the Rams, and ESPN wrote a feature article about the road to 200, like all roads lead to Rome. And let's not forget that in Jewish gematria, Roman equals 201, just like Rams. And let's also not forget that in the last Super Bowl, Brady won. Scripted as ever, he had 201 passing yards. So, if you want to check out that video, it's a 25-minute stream, and the media is questioning if Chandler Jones has gone mental. And again, I guess that's what they always do to you if you bring up the Illuminati, right? Must be mental illness if you are promoting any type of conspiracy. The New York Times, which has always been run by Jesuits, wrote an article about conspiracy theorists and mental illness sometime back around 2013, because I remember my aunt out in North Dakota, she shared that article with me, implying that I was mentally ill for questioning 9/11 and other events in history. She's totally sure it was just the pancake theory on 9/11 and the man in the cave did it. Anyway, she also got all of her jabs. So, see how that works out in the not too distant future. This in the news. This reportedly happened the same day Tupac's killer was arrested. That was last week, right? We covered that. On the same day that Tupac's killer's arrested, a man on social media who goes by the name Bubak Shakur is murdered. I mean, just what are the odds? What are the odds? And this is also in the news. A young black girl killed by police. Her family gets 11 million. Of course, in Gematria, black equals 11. We've seen it many a times before. And the headline prior to that was that the police were sentenced to 11 months of house arrest. So first we get the 11 months of house arrest. Then we get the 11 million settlements. And this was the picture that CNN put out in their story. I thought, why is that picture so blurry? Is there really a phantability? That's a weird photo. So, and again, it was 3 officers responsible for the killing. 3, the number that has the relationship with 56, because when you spell out 3, when you spell out light, when you spell out Abrahamic, they all equal 56. Again, the Abrahamic religion is based in Genesis. Genesis 1:3, the 3rd verse, God makes light, thus 3, light, Abrahamic, all 56. Numbers that get paired together all the time, like in Super Bowl 56, the first touchdown scored by number 3, the man born on the day, leaving 56 days left in the year, in a 3-point game. And once again, you just had the Super Bowl 56 rematch last week on Monday Night Football, and once again, a 3-point game, as Matt Stafford came in with 56 career road losses. Anyhow, also in the news, Powerball's up to $1.04 billion, and of course, later this week, you got the October 4th alert being sent out to our phones by the government. Reminds us of the alert that was sent out back when Trump was in office, that was sent out at 2:18 p.m. Eastern Time sharp. And a lot of people are thinking this is some kind of sign that the world's going to end or some great calamity is about to happen. I don't know about all that, but 10-4 message received, that's what I see. This government message going out on 10-4. That's my interpretation. 10-4 message received. Life goes on. And, there's a member of the community, and actually I don't think he's really a member of the community. Seemed like he was a guy looking for community, but just kind of a guy hanging around. And, he's just on a real bad stretch. I mean, he's doing live streams, like literally about 6 to 8 hours a day, just babbling my name, like literally over and over while drinking in his vehicle. And yesterday, literally drinking and driving at the same time while babbling my name over and over and over. And I left him a message that he should pull over and sleep it off. But, anyway, in the middle of all of his psychobabble, he actually found something interesting. He found a new 322, and what he said in his stream was completely incorrect. He said that the only thing we ever talk about with 322 is Skull and Bones, which is 1,000,000% false. We've talked about a gazillion things with 322 over the years, the primary ones being how important it is to Kabbalah, 3 pillars, 22 paths, where Genesis 322 speaks of the tree of life, the physical model for Kabbalah, the philosophers who died in the year 322, which is why Skull and Bones says that they're named 322 or Order 322 in tribute to those philosophers. And just where the number's shown up in dates in history and how infamous March 22nd is, from the Georgia Guidestones to so many other events, the massacre that brought about the identity of the United States of America that was blamed on Native Americans, even though there was no witnesses, that brought about Virginia. That happened on March 22nd. Again, 322, this infamous number, but what the guy who's having a mental break did uncover is he found that there's this old Babylonian clay tablet known as Plimpton 322. And it's interesting that it has 15 rows. That's probably something about Skull and Bones, because they allow 15 members each year. But this one probably deserves some more research. So, Plimpton 322. I don't remember anyone uncovering that before. So, anyhow. Let's see. We got a few more super chats. Thank you again. It's the usual suspects. Open up with another $5. Thank you very much, friend. He says, another story that makes no sense, just like Hitler committed suicide, but somehow his body nowhere to be found. I'm not sure at what point you left that in the stream, but Maybe it was Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm. Shout out to Slick Nick. Emo Jimmy Butler in the news today. Okay. Must be going the Dwayne Wade son child route. And shout out to congrats to the winners. Lil Wayne just turned 41. Yeah, he's got that September 27th birthday. All right. The GG33 guy is a guy who was aware of what I was teaching before I was teaching it, but he was only sharing it at a very expensive price and where you had to sign up and pay him thousands of dollars and sign an NDA. And I didn't know who he was until 2016 when he became a weekly caller to TFR. And he just embarrassed himself week after week. He'd call in and say, "You're going to be wrong about this." And then, well, I ended up being right about that, and he ended up being wrong. And then he's a big Donald Trump supporter, and he gets to go sit behind Donald Trump at his rallies, and he gets to go on TV there sometimes in Cleveland. And once upon a time, he got to go on Cleveland and share the information that he took from me, like it was his own find. So GG33 is what we know as a scumbag loser. And he was very unappreciative that I put out the knowledge for free that, he was profiting a lot off of. So I put a dent in his business. With that, it wasn't intentional. I didn't even know who he was. And of course, he's Jewish, so he goes to Saturday school. Saturday school, they know about Kabbalah and Gematria. To me, it was a totally foreign thing until I found it through the excerpt online from Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. I don't know who Micah Dank is, but at the same time, I feel like I've heard their name before, but I'm not sure who that is. Oh yeah, open up. Aaron Hernandez. Yeah, exactly. That was another story that didn't make sense. Yeah, 100%. I'm a lucky I didn't get sued. Honestly, I could probably sue Gary the Numbers guy, GG33, if I wanted to, because defamation. I mean, he's another guy. I think a lot of the trolls that hang around are his agents. A lot of the trolls who sit around and slander me all day, I think they're part of his network, whatever network he's part of. Um, yeah, I mean, there's no way he could have sued me. I didn't know anything about who he was, so I didn't learn from him. And then what everyone found out is he's charging money for this and isn't a fraction as good as I am at it. So he's wrong about everything. I'm right about everything in 2016, exactly how it was. He made an ass out of himself. I made a big name for myself, and the work spread. I was doing it for free to try and wake humanity up. He was trying to keep the knowledge to himself to make a penny, just like how his cousins, the Sackler family did it with the opioid crisis, and his other cousins with the Monsanto family did it with, poisoning people in a million different ways. He's part of that clan. So if everybody wasn't under the spell of that fake religion that says turn the other cheek, give Caesar what's his, these people would probably be wiped from the face of the earth. So yeah, what Gary did at the end of 2016 was he made a website called Gematria Fraud that just had my face on it. And it was like, okay, I'm the fraud? The guy who was right about everything when you called in and embarrassed yourself each week and were wrong about everything? I think we know who the actual fraud is. But that's how these people play. So all right, I heard Daria's got surgery today. Daria, I hope it goes well and get better soon. Stay off the opioids, though. Yeah, of course he's obsessed with me. Poor Gary. I'm sure he's out there watching right now. Here, in case Gary or any of his lunatics are listening right now, I am going to do a show again tonight. We're doing the Monday show, but maybe one of the lunatics wants to call in and explain themselves. Why do they sit around and harass and slander me? Is it just because they're jealous? Are they bitter? Do call in and tell. So I'll keep the lines open for 5 minutes. If we can't get one of them to call in.